News Now at 5 with Paula Francis and Dave Cavassier. The news for Southern Nevada is now.
Firefighters gaining ground on the massive fire in Arizona. It now covers 700 square miles and is just 10% contained. Since the fire ignited May 29th, 30 homes and cabins have been destroyed. While thousands of people went back to their homes over the weekend, almost 3,000 are still waiting for word. Closer to home at Mount Charleston, scars can still be seen from last summer's cathedral fire. UNLV scientists believe each year brings higher chances for a catastrophic fire in that community. Nathan Baca is live to show us what's being done to keep our local mountain forests from going up in flames. Nathan.
Well, Paula, from our vantage point in the Mount Charleston Lodge, you can see just what's being done here. Look at this mountainside where you can see where Nevada's Forestry Department is thinning the woods. But up above, the trees are thick, too thick, according to some local scientists.
This one's 1 meter.
UNLV graduate students measured the diameter of trees at a research plot. Overseeing them, ecologist Scott Abella.
You can start getting some diameters, and so I would just go straight back, Sylvia.
Stumps show where two large trees grew 100 years ago. These woods are now filled with trees. Too much of a good thing.
Major increase in the density of the forest, so a lot more trees today than 100 years ago, so a lot more fuel. So when we do have a fire today, it can pretty much take everything out.
We hike with Dr. Abella's team to the starting point of last year's cathedral fire. Only the underbrush should have burned. Instead, tall, dead trees remain.
Because we've been so good at actually stopping these fires, we've had this tremendous fuel buildup.
UNLV's scientific data shows wildfire fuel once burned off every 2 years. Without that, Abella says it's time to cut down some of these smaller trees.
It actually costs about several $100s an acre to moor. These trees are fairly small that need to be cut, so there's very little market for them. It's not like we can get lumber from these trees. But again, in the long run, that's much cheaper than trying to continue to fight these fires.
Abella's students keep studying Mount Charleston's forest, hoping to pinpoint the right areas to create fire breaks, trying to prevent future catastrophic blazes.
I still see myself collecting as much data as I can, researching, trying to get the forest to mimic the past forest, seeing what it used to be like, and trying to restore it.
I want to protect the forest and really all wilderness, so for future generations.
The Mount Charleston Lodge tells us this past weekend was their beginning of their busy tourist season for the summer. Now, as a reminder, the cathedral fire started last July because of a campfire, so it just shows the urgency that's needed to be able to control the fire danger over here. Reporting live from Mount Charleston, Nathan Baca, 8 News Now.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks,
it's
Nathan.
such a beautiful place up there at Mount
so
Charleston.
gorgeous.
Just gorgeous. And cooler.
Yeah, a little cooler than here, Darren.
Yeah, so Mount Charleston, that's the place to go, right? To beat the heat right now, yeah.
In southern Nevada, you can still see the damage left behind by last summer's cathedral fire up at Mount Charleston. And as the years go by, the fire danger grows. UNLV scientists say our local forests have too many trees. And the more greenery, the more fuel for a fire. The Nevada Division of Forestry does its part to thin the trees, but scientists say some of the older, taller trees are just too thick.
The amount of fuel here is so much greater that when there is a forest fire, it pretty much takes out all the trees. There's just so much fuel, so it can burn up into the crown of the trees. 100 years ago, it probably just would have been burning along the ground.
Scott Abella's students are studying the Mount Charleston forests and hoping to pinpoint the right areas to create fire breaks that could prevent future fires. And with the summer tourist season swinging into high gear, there's no better time to talk fire prevention.
Questions are...
It's a fire like the one burning in Arizona that brings concern for residents of Mount Charleston. Small fire, the cathedral fire, burned there a year ago.
A campfire started that blaze. It didn't do much damage, but it forced the evacuation of much of the mountain. A UNLV scientist says some trees need to be cut down now to prevent a catastrophic wildfire.
Nathan Baca went up to the mountain today to see just how they plan to save the forest.
We hike in with UNLV ecologist Dr. Scott Abella and his team. Their data shows that our local forests essentially have too many trees.
An area like this 100 years ago probably would have been burning every few years. Actually, again, just through the understory, it wouldn't have killed the large trees that were resistant to fire.
Tree rings show how some ponderosa pines on Mount Charleston date back to 1740. Those trees were no match for last July's cathedral fire. It take several $100s an acre to cut down smaller trees, thinning the forest for the sake of larger trees.
You have to show them that a fire could cost a lot more money than it would actually be to be proactive about it.
Nevada's Department of Agriculture is deploying these bark beetle traps to try to make certain that this forest isn't infested by the beetle, which can kill trees, making even further fuel for wildfires.
This one's 1 meter.
UNLV's scientific data shows one clear thing. This forest is overcrowded with trees that can either be cleared up by design or by catastrophe. Nathan Baca, 8 News Now.
Fire danger at Mount Charleston increases with the temperatures and with the rising number of visitors. The lodge at Mount Charleston says this last weekend marked the beginning of their busy summer season.
A new study suggests that Nevada